Time to get this lasagna started. I got a nice stainless steel pan. I added 2 ounces of vegetable oil. Next, I have 2 pounds of ground beef. I'm using 80-20, which means there's 80% beef, 20% fat. Don't worry, we're going to render out the fat later. Fat equals flavor. I'm crumbling up the beef as best as I can, making sure the pan is hot. Crumbling the beef so we can get some nice browning. Browning equals caramelization. Caramelization equals flavor. And that's the first layer of flavor in our lasagna. Grab a wooden spoon now, start breaking it up a little bit. I'm only going to stir this for about 20 seconds, and then I'm going to let it go so we can develop a little bit more color. Making sure we break up all the nice little chunks that we have because we want the ground beef nice and crumbled. After about 7 to 8 minutes of cooking, you can see that there's no more red in the ground beef. We're looking perfectly cooked right now. I'm gonna let this go for another minute. No more than 10 minutes for this ground beef to be cooked. The ground beef is cooked. We're gonna drain and set aside. Okay, I got 5 quarts of water. I'm adding 2 tablespoons of kosher salt. And in boiling water, I'm gonna add my pasta. I'm using the lasagna sheets. As you can see, I'm throwing them in a way they're not going to stick together. I don't have any oil in the pan, but the most important thing while we're doing this is once you get it all in, we're going to stir it all around and making sure that the pasta does not stick. So here you can see I'm pushing them down a little bit, and as they start to get tender, it'll be easier to continue to swirl. So you're going to cook this just as long as it says on the pasta box, and make sure we continue to stir. Alright, so we have our ground beef that's been cooked and chilled. I'm going to add 1 cup of ricotta cheese. We're just going to mix that in. I like to add my ricotta to my ground beef. It's going to ensure that my beef stays nice and moist and it doesn't dry out in the cooking process. I'm going to take this opportunity to season with salt. I'm going to just taste it as we go. It's important that your meat is perfectly seasoned. That means you're going to get a perfect lasagna. To make the tomato sauce, you can refer to our chicken Parmesan recipe, and to our bechamel, you can refer to our mac and cheese sauce. By all means, you can absolutely use jarred sauce, but of course, if you're cooking with Chef Kelvin and you're learning to cook like me, you can make your own tomato sauce now. All right, we're gonna put one nice little layer of tomato sauce on the bottom. We'll get our first layer of noodles. I'm going to do 4 on this. You can stop at 3. I just like to make sure that my pasta is completely covered. So we're going to do a nice little layer. You can overlap it too. We're going to do a little bit of sauce. We're going to go with our meat mixture. Our bechamel sauce. Don't worry, we're gonna push everything down and it's gonna flatten our lasagna. And we're gonna repeat. So one layer. Overlap second layer. This is when we can start pushing down. I don't want to get my hands too dirty. Three. Just like that, you see? We're gonna get to where we want. Don't you worry. And let's repeat. Now's a great time to go. Make sure your oven is preheated at 350 degrees. Nothing better than a lasagna going into a hot oven, so let's make sure we do that now. All we need to do is continuously add the layers little by little, making sure that we're trying to spread it as evenly as possible. Just remember, it helps every time we press down. Then we're adding our bechamel sauce. I like to evenly spread this out as well, just because when it starts to boil and cook in the oven, it spreads out really nicely. I'm using about a third each time. So this is our second layer of bechamel. Always reserve a little bit more for the top. We're adding our next and final layer of noodles, sticking with the 4 theme, and gently, lightly press down every single time I add one. And then once they're all completely covered, I get to press down one more time, making sure that the lasagna gets evenly spread. Once we add our last layer of noodles, we're going to add all the rest of the tomato sauce. Remember, we're adding in thirds, so this is the third part of the tomato sauce. I'm just going to add all the sauce that we have. A plastic spatula will be easier to get all the little bits in the pot to avoid this scraping sound that annoys me so much. Once we got the tomato sauce down, we're going to add our final layer of bechamel sauce. Just pretty much spreading it as much as I can. Remember, once it's in the oven, it's going to spread out, but it's giving you really nice moisture in this lasagna, and it's going to save it later because we're not going to cover our lasagna. Now we're adding our last layer of cheese. We're going in the oven, been preheated at 350 degrees for 30 minutes. I am not covering my lasagna. We're making sure that the lasagna will not be dried because we added the ricotta to the ground beef and the 2 sauces. 350 degrees, 30 minutes. See you later. All right, we are almost there. Now we're gonna change the temperature to broil. We're gonna put that in the oven for 4 minutes under the broiler. Oh yeah, baby. That is what we call perfection. All right, out of the oven. Had it under the broiler for 4 minutes. And that's what we look. Now we're gonna leave it alone for 20 minutes before we cut into this bad boy. After we waited our 20 minutes, now we're going to cut this into 12 as equally best possible as we can. I'm going to start with the first layer. I'm going to cut that down. I'm going to cut the second. This is why it was so important to let it wait, because if we try to cut this right away, the cheese would completely rip off the top and missing the crispy, crusty layer that we love. All right, I'm going to follow this down. And one more time, I'm gonna cut this to third. There goes some of that cheese. Don't worry, we'll put that right back on top. And we're still gonna cover our lasagna with a little bit of Parmesan cheese if you have it handy. If not, some fresh herbs. Make sure you cut around all the way to make sure it makes it a little bit easier for us to pull out our lasagna. Man, I can't wait. My mouth is watering. In my house, we fight for the corners. But for presentation purposes, I'm just going to go for this one right here because I promise you, the hardest to take out is always the first one. After I plate this really nicely, trust me, I'm going back for every little piece of residual that's left. And the best thing about lasagna, it gets better after it sits in the refrigerator and you get to heat it up the next day. I will be eating this for the next couple days, I promise you. If you have some Parmesan cheese laying around from any other recipes, pour some on top. Serve this with some garlic bread or eat it on its own. I can't wait for seconds and thirds. Enjoy, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Kelvin's Kitchen. Happy cooking, happy eating. Until next time.